Hello friends, Jay the Silent Cartographer here, cheating on today's daily map. I don't even know if this will be today's daily map or if this will be a bonus daily map. It's either going to be number 36 or number 37 or number 36.5, as it is currently 11:03 p.m. September 12th, which is the same day that I did the atoll map, the circular map. And I don't know what it is. I was contemplating working on my book after reading all day, and I just, not even that I'm in the mood to procrastinate, I'm just in the mood to make a map. And so I figure if I'm making a map already, maybe there's a chance that I make this a long one, that it pushes past that midnight mark and I have tomorrow's map already done. Although I think I'd be a little bit lost to that daily map tomorrow. I would certainly enjoy doing a map tomorrow as well after I've slept. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Ooh, this is a good one. This has got a lot of open space in it. I really like maps with big open spaces. Let's see if we can mess with the water level a little bit and see what we can't create with that. I'm digging that. Getting any bigger gets a bit tenuous. I don't think we should go any bigger than that. What about smaller? Any interesting shapes? Not really. It's just a big blob. I think that 0.54 has that little disconnect here, that little channel, and maybe 0.55. No, 55 is too low. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead with actually. Yeah, no, that's a very nice shape. I'm gonna once again change the outline color to black, landmass outline blend to 0, FX distance to 0, vignette strength to 0, just so I can kind of see what I'm doing, and I'm going to go to immediately cleaning up this coastline. Yes, again, I am horrendously lazy, and so I do not do hand-drawn coastlines, although if there was ever a time to do it, it would have been tonight. Maybe tomorrow I'll do a nice hand-drawn map, but hand coastlined map. Do I want to cut the tops off of this? No, I kind of enjoy the fact that those are kind of cut off a little bit. But no, I've been so damn stumped all day. You know, I've been looking over at my writing desk, which is to my left. It's kind of an oxymoron if you think about it, but is what is. I've been looking over at my writing desk and I've been so frustrated because I'm through the point in the outline where I understand where I want the story to go, but not having that main character name is really bothering me. Because I keep referring to him as the man in the manuscript, and it just doesn't. It's not conducive to writing actual prose. It's nice for an outline where I can just be like, the man does this, and then I can just refer to people as their base concepts, like the mage, the illuminator, the breaker, the shadowy man, the mysterious person in the barn. But once I'm actually sitting down to write and put pen to paper, I need those names. I need that familiarity with the character, and I couldn't find it. No matter how hard I looked at it, it just drove me up the wall. So, I mean, I mentioned this in today's daily map, but I set out to let me mess with the water a little bit here. Let me mess with the water a little bit here while we're doing this. I set out to create a name, and I wound up like writing dozens and dozens of names on a piece of paper. I just wrote name after name after name after name after name into this notebook, to the point where it's basically stuffed full. You know, it's chock full of. It's chock full of all the ideas that I could possibly have for names. And I went so rampant as to pick out and use, or to just like write down names of some of my favorite fantasy characters, just to kind of get names in my head, if that makes any sense. And I felt a little bit crazy doing it, but I think just today I've come up with like 50, 60 great names that I'd love to use, but none of them are that protagonist. None of them are this character. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's time to go and mull over the mull over the what's the word for it? The outline a little bit and do some expanding on the outline. But like every time I go to uh every time I go to get done what I want to get done, it hits me in the face like a ton of bricks. I don't even know my main character. And so instead of slamming my head repeatedly against a brick wall that I'm not sure how to break through, I figured, why don't I warm up my creative juices by doing another map, just because I enjoy it so much. It's something that, to me at least, is just so lovely, so creative and freeing for me to sit down and just make a map. I'm looking for a parchment color, by the way. I'm thinking maybe like I want a darker parchment color. It's not that red. It's not that yellow. I was thinking maybe a sand color would work like well. It's like a worn parchment. That looks pretty much like parchment. I want to go to symbols really quickly, and then I just kind of want to draw those down and just take a look. You know, that looks about right. That looks about right. Yeah, let's try something real new and interesting here. Let's try these mountains that I've never gotten to work outside of that one treasure map that we did months and months and months and months ago. Months and months and months, weeks and weeks and weeks. I believe it was like daily map number 7 or 8 where we did the treasure map that used these super beautiful like old Chinese or Japanese, like the Asian style old worn maps. And I absolutely adore the style. I mean, being somebody who's grown up around anime and grown up around a bunch of losers who want to be from Japan, having wanted to live that life in my past and then grown out of it a little bit as I matured, the style has always kind of gripped me a little bit, and I think it's beautiful. So we're gonna make a map out of it. But is this working? You know, I'm not sure if it is, but you know what? The best thing about ideas that don't work is that they can teach you something. If you make something and you don't like it, then you can go into your next project knowing exactly what you don't like. It's the same reason I love relationships that fall apart. I've had at least 7 girlfriends in my life, and I'm thankful for each and every one of them, because while some of them ended very well and others ended very poorly, all of them taught me what I'm looking for in a person, or what I'm not looking for in a person, and that information about myself is valuable, whether or not the relationship still holds fondly in my head. So, I mean, my first girlfriend in high school, my freshman year of high school, was awesome, but she was very, very clingy. She would call after me every day at school, and I eventually made up the excuse that I was doing homework every single day, and eventually she got fed up, and I broke up with her. And that taught me the valuable lesson that I like my own space, which is odd because I felt very lonely growing up, and so I thought when I first got a girlfriend that like, oh, she's really clingy. That's awesome. Like I love the fact that she's all about it and she wants to like spend all this time and all this energy getting my attention. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Until I was suffocated by it, and I realized that no, that's not actually how I function. I was desperate for the affection and for the attention for that short fleeting moment, but once I was satiated, I was a very reclusive person. I didn't want to spend every day after school with her. I didn't want to do all the things that she wanted to do. And I started viewing the relationship as a pain in the ass, and I fortunately, and I did it without realizing what I was doing. I broke it off and I did what was good for me. And that's something that's very hard to do. It's something I struggle with even now when I'm much more emotionally mature than a 14-year-old child ever was. But I mean, it taught me a lot about myself. And then I mean, my most recent girlfriend, absolutely lovely woman. Wish we'd stayed better friends than we did. We're still friends, but we haven't talked in over a year. Um, But one of her big things was that she really wants kids, and I was gonna actually go move in with her. And I was sitting in my apartment one day, shortly before moving across the country to be close to her, and I thought to myself, I don't know if I ever want children. I don't know if that's ever something that really appeals to me. And I mean, I knew how much it meant to her to have children. And so the first thing I did was I messaged her and I said, "Hey, I don't know if I ever want kids." And she took a minute to reply. And the reply that I got was, I don't think we should see each other anymore then." And that was a real kick in the gut. Changed a lot of my plans. A lot of my plans went out the window the moment she said that. But it taught me something about myself, which is that I don't want children. I don't want the responsibility of being a father. I don't want that burden placed upon me. It's not something that I enjoy. Children are never something I enjoyed. And to me, in my head, it was always like, oh, you're expected to do this. You're expected to sire children at some point in your life. But thinking about it, and I mean, this might have been a product of growing up without a father, because my father died of leukemia when I was 4 years old. But I thought to myself, like, if I'm if I hate kids, right? If I get really anxious when I'm around them, and I know people will say, "Oh, but if it's your kid, it's different." I don't know that, and I can't know that unless I have a child. By that point, it's too late to run away. Um, and so, like, I know this about myself that I really dislike children. And so, thinking to myself, growing up in a household where my mother was very bad at mourning the loss of my father. I didn't have a lot of attention as a child. I got very anxious as a child, and I grew up without a father. And the stepfather that came into the picture was dreadful, abusive, terrible, and not somebody I'd ever want to associate with. And I'm thinking to myself, could I bring a child into the world knowing that I would probably wind up hating them? And the answer to that question is no. It's not something I'd ever want to put a child through because I know what that's like. I know what it's like growing up without a father, without a figure in the household. Whether or not you like, I'm not talking about father in the traditional sense of you need a man in the house in order to raise a good son or daughter. No, I'm saying that one of your parents being missing or gone or deceased or ended in one tragic way or another, be that divorce or because they ran away, whatever it winds up being, it really shapes the upbringing of a child, that it really hampers the joy of that child. And I don't want that for anybody. I wouldn't wish what I grew up experiencing on my worst enemy. It shaped me in a very twisted way for a very long time until I reconciled with it decades later. And so the solution was so painfully obvious, and that's that if you're not going to put the effort in to be a father, just don't have kids. It's not an obligation. It's not something that's expected of me any more than it's expected of anybody else. But at the same time, it wasn't fair to the woman that I was dating, who desperately wanted children, to be with somebody who didn't. And so we broke up in one of the most amicable ways possible. We just said, you know what? Then I guess we have some misaligned ideals, and that's that. And I harbor no ill will towards her. I wish her the absolute best. She's an amazing person, and she's gonna find somebody who's gonna give her everything she needs in life and more. And you'd think that I might feel bitter. I might feel sad or upset, but I'm generally pretty happy with it because I got to spend a couple of months of my life with a really awesome person who taught me some awesome things about myself, who did some awesome things with me, and at the end of the day, I get to sit back, I get to live the life that I wanted to live, and I can watch her be happy. And eventually, which has already happened, I can move on. And I think that there's something so valuable in that freedom to take a step back and just to move on. Um, it's very cathartic, and it's very important to learn. It's a very important skill to learn, and it took me a long time to learn it. I was a hopeless romantic as a child. I'd get crushes on people with absolutely no understanding of their feelings towards me. I would recklessly pursue them and either hurt them or myself in the process. And then there was one day in college where I had a crush on somebody, and they were in the room with me at the time because me and like seven other people were all just like we were having a sleepover, we were having a video game party, and I just sat there, and in my head I was just like, this is never gonna work. What do I do? This sucks. And so I sat there, I closed my eyes, and I thought about it, and I said goodbye in my head, and I decided right then and there, I'm just gonna move on. Just gonna move on. And I did, and we're still friends to this day. And I have absolutely no romantic inclinations towards her anymore at all. It's the weirdest thing, right? Just like when I was when I was in therapy, like intensive therapy, when I was a child for my anxiety and my depression, and my therapists were trying to pull at things inside of my head with a wrench to see what was tight and what was loose and what they might be able to drill out of me. They came upon the trauma of my father dying. And now my father dying when I was a kid was very, very weird, very odd, because it was something that happened when I was so young that I didn't really understand what was going on. My mother did not take the death very well at all, and so she didn't really offer any support. And so what wound up happening was that in my head, my father's death was something that people just apologized for, and I hated it. Still to this day, I really dislike when people say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," when they hear that my father died. Because my father was more than an apology. He was a great person, and it almost feels like an insult for anybody to say that my dad is only worth a simple apology. And so I'd always gone through life being like, I didn't really know him, I didn't really care. I formulated the responses to "I'm sorry your dad died," and that became my impression of who my dad was. My dad was somebody who I had to assure people it was okay to apologize for his death. Basically, I had to say, "Oh, it's fine," every time that they said, "I'm so sorry to hear that." And so I never really grew up mourning my father because there was nobody to mourn. I didn't know the guy. He had leukemia by the time I was almost 3, and he was dead by the time I was 4. Like, what are you going to pull out of that? What memories could you even possibly have? I don't have any, save for the pictures that I have. But I learned growing up, and this was a very powerful revelation to me, that I didn't lose a father. I lost the potential experience of having one in the first place. What I was angry about, what I needed to move past and mourn, wasn't the fact that I lost memories with somebody I held dear, but because I lost the experience of being taught things that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise. It didn't really hit me all that hard until I got a little bit older and things started to come up, and like I went to a wedding and I had to tie a tie, and I had to say, "Hey, I don't know how to tie a tie." "Well, didn't your dad teach you?" "No, didn't have one." Or when I learned to shave for the first time, I botched it terribly, and people laughed at me. "Who taught you to shave? Your dad's retarded." "I don't have one." So I didn't lose the man of my father. I didn't lose the man that was my father. I lost all of the information, all of the stuff that he had that he could give me and pass on as knowledge and as wisdom. And I think that that's far more tragic than losing memories with somebody, because memories can always be positive. They can always be remembered and reveled in and taken as wisdom. But losing experiences is something that you'll never get back. You never get to experience having a father a second time. And so when somebody dies, you don't lose the memories. You cherish the memories. You lose the experience of being with that person. And learning that and having to come to grips with the fact that, yeah, maybe I did lose something significant in my life. I lost learning how to shave, learning how to ride a bike, learning how to drive. I lost somebody who could mentor me in the ways of how to be emotionally mature, which I'm not even sure if he knew. Because I mean, it's such an important thing to learn, especially for a young man these days, is that it's okay to show that you're really angry or that you're really sad, and that bottling that up just causes you to explode. But because I grew up in a household with my mother who didn't know how to mourn my father, and a stepfather who was rather be violent than be productive, I never got that experience. And so it's fascinating for me to think about that in that way and kind of contextualize my own upbringing in the sense that what I was missing was not the person, but the things that that person stood for and the things that that person could have done for me and my mother and my family at the time. And so yeah, just really interesting trains of thought that I like bringing up, especially in Daily Map, because I mean, who knows who's watching these, right? To 99.95% of people, this is a random madman going on a rambling rant about philosophy, the world, and how shit works in his own twisted head. And, you know, if you think that, that's completely valid, because you're completely correct. But who knows, maybe one person finds this video and they're struggling with something, and if that one person finds even a nugget of wisdom in what I have to say, and it helps them live one more day a little bit better than the day before, then I'm satisfied with that. And I mean, hey, it's good therapy for me too. I can sit here and I can talk about my life, my experiences, and just pushing the words out of my face, saying the things that I'm thinking out loud. I mean, what an experience, what a helpful thing, right? Is just speaking aloud your own problems. It's almost akin to admitting you have them, right? You're basically saying to the world, in this case, I'm literally saying to the world, like, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm messing up, or I'm feeling something odd here. And then it's exploring that, and it's saying, well, why do I feel that? Why do I feel melancholy? Why do I feel like I've lost something? Why am I angry? Why am I sad? These are questions that are so hard to answer because the actual answer is hidden. It's hidden inside of your mind. And you have to dig and pull that out. And pulling something out of your head sounds painful because it is. And so, I mean, if one person's watching this and they say that, you know, maybe today's the day I confront that pain. Maybe today's the day I pull something out of myself I never knew was in there. Then, you know, good job. You did something that few and far between have done, and you will be a better person for it. And I apologize for waxing poetic in the middle of Daily Map, but I don't know. Some days, and I'm sure that this is part of my depression or part of my anxiety or maybe even part of my ADHD. But some days I feel like I need to talk about stuff. You know, I feel like I would be better for talking, and so I do. And amazingly, I mean, I'm posting this bare on the internet for any who wish to see it. I mean, this is part of the reason why I want to become a storyteller. I want to try to take some of these ideas that I have, the themes and the motifs of life itself, and put them into stories and characters that other people can discover and relate to in ways that are far different than this like single person podcast style of just talking at a camera or talking at a microphone in this case. And I mean, again, I don't know if it'll help anybody. Really, I don't. But it helps me, and so I guess that's good enough, right? That's all you need to know. Is if something helps you, do it. Unless it hurts somebody else, then think about it first, then do it. But it's one of the reasons I love stories so much, is because stories and watching people solve oftentimes emotional problems can give you solutions to problems you didn't know you had. A great example of this, an absolutely stellar example of this, is the anime Anohana, or The Flower We Saw That Day. Highly recommend, highly recommend anybody in the world to watch that show. Just for the reason that I mean, the main motif and the thing that it teaches about is grief and anger and how groups of people can drift apart through grief and how that can negatively impact someone's life and destroy them. Another fantastic anime for thinking about yourself and the world is Welcome to the NHK, about a man who is suicidally depressed, or March Came in Like a Lion. Sangatsu no Lion is a masterwork on the feeling of existential dread that comes with depression. And that drowning, almost swimming feeling that you get watching the anime is exactly how it feels to be in that position. I mean, my favorite anime of all time is Your Lie in April. Partially because I'm a huge music nut, which definitely helps, and then partially because of the subject matter of dealing with the thoughts of dying and being finite and doing everything you can with the short time you have left to do something amazing for other people. Like, there's so much beauty in that show. And too often I'll say, hey, my favorite show is Your Lie in April, or Your Name, or A Silent Voice, another fantastic look into bullying and disability. And people say, oh, you watch anime? What a loser. That's such a wrong way to such the wrong way to go about it. Every story can teach you something about yourself. Every character teaches you a solution to a problem, and it might not be your solution, but I'd rather fill my book with options and pull the exact one out that I need rather than sit on my own thoughts and emotions and try to figure out everything myself. Because people have suffered long and wide for many, many hundreds of years so that we don't have to. And that includes suffering emotionally. Everyone's been through something similar to what you're going through. And while your situation is wholly unique, and I'm not trying to take any of that away from you, I mean, the fact of the matter is that other people have been through similar things. Like, if you're having problems with drug addiction, listening to how 100 different addicts got over drug addiction, each of their story will be different. Some will go through a program, others will just snap one day and pull themselves out with their bootstraps. Some of them will say that their family saved their lives. Each one is a valid solution that's worked for them and might work for you too. Right now, I struggle with motivation. I never get anything done, and so I'm trying to find new ways to police myself, to give myself goals and achieve them, to write the book that I've always wanted to write, to tell stories, to finish school. And I mean, I'm shocked that I've gotten through this many daily maps, because I mean, I'm a notorious flake. I start things and I don't finish them. That's my whole gig. But spending a little bit of time every day doing something like this it's built up this work ethic in me, which sometimes gets left to 11 p.m. Granted, I will give you that, but most days there's a map that comes out of my hands, and that's an amazing feeling. And today too, or maybe tomorrow's one. And every single one of them, I'm proud to say, hey, I made that. That's neat. And even if they're not beautiful, even if I would never take money for commissioning for something like what I'm making in Daily Map, I'm proud for a different reason, and I'm proud because I'm keeping the promise that I made to myself, that I was going to spend a little bit of time every single day being creative and doing something for me. And Daily Map is, at the end of the day, for me. I think it's important to have something like that where you sit down and you just do it. Originally, my plan was to write a story in an hour every day. I did one, and it hurt me to do that. It physically hurt me to do that. Because, I don't know, it was so incomplete. I feel like an hour a day is not enough time to write a full story, for my level of writing anyways. And I feel like the ideas that I had in the one story that I wrote fell horrendously flat and were a mockery to what I wanted to achieve as a storyteller. And so I was like, you know what I can do though, in a very short period of time, is I can do Daily Map. And who knows, maybe one day off in the distant future, once I've published a book, once I've published my adventure, I'll come back to daily writing and I'll be like, hey, I can do this now. I can knock out a story a day. It'll be awesome. I'll do some creative and cool things with it. Explore different characters with different backgrounds and different settings and see how far I can push myself. But in this moment, that's not what's right for me. What's right for me is Daily Map, which is something quick, simple. I can do it in 15 minutes if I'm not feeling up to it, or I can spend 2-3 hours clicking down trees if I feel like that's what I need to do. And speaking of clicking down things over the course of 2-3 hours, holy crap, I love this so far. Gonna have to change the water to something a bit more neutral, but I really like the way this is turning out. You know? It's funny, because I started from a place of not knowing where I would go with this, not knowing if it would be good enough, and I've ended in a place where it is. Good enough. And I'm even using a technique that I used in one of my favorite daily maps from recent memory. I believe it was 2 days ago. Where I made little clumps of mountains instead of mountain ranges. Of course, there are mountain ranges on that map, but the ideas of little clusters of mountains just seems like it would work with this style, and it totally does. Look at this. And so, here we are. Have our big mountain range with the little hills, the pretty trees on the paper map. And this is suddenly a map that I'm horrendously proud to have made. This is a map that I want to share with the world. This is a daily map. Although I'm not sure if I can vamp for another 30 minutes in this recording to make it to the next day, but maybe, just maybe, we'll cheat a little bit and we'll delay the upload. Because I think that this is a very worthy daily map. I mean, I think that this is a worthy video to place on its own as well as like a 36.5, but at the same time, I think that this deserves a spot on the daily map archives as its own day, its own map. See, now that I've dumped my my emotional baggage out in the recording, I have precious little to say. Kind of all talked out, actually. I've done the talking that I wanted to get off my chest. I feel refreshed. I feel ready to get back to writing, or to get to writing. Really, is the better word for it. I really want to come up with that character name. I think it's so important to me to come up with that character name. And it's like it's a phantom living on the tip of my tongue, you know? And it's like a pop rock. It's there. I taste it for a second, then it pops in my mouth and it fizzles to nothing. I don't know what the hell that guy's name is. I've been experimenting with like 3-letter names, like shortened names, nicknames. And I think nicknames are nice. I think nicknames allow you to get away with fantasy names. A lot of series do this. Once again, not God. People are gonna think I'm the biggest like Brandon Sanderson fanboy, which to be fair I am. But I mean, again, since I've been rereading the Mistborn series too, main character of the second Mistborn series, and this is not a spoiler by the way, so you don't have to worry about that. His name is Waxilium, but people call him Wax. Kelsier was named Kel, Doxson was named Dox, Hammond was named Ham. So you're allowed to get away with these really pious and pompous names, and then shorten them to something very easy to pronounce and that stick in your readers' minds. And I think Sanderson's a freaking genius for coming up with that. I mean, he didn't come up with that. Let's be completely honest with ourselves and each other here. But he does use that technique very well. It's a good demonstration of how that works. And so I was doing some experimentation with that. I was doing some experimentation with elven names, with human names that were generated, and I took the liberty of writing character names of characters that I liked. I think I mentioned this already. Like I wrote dozens and dozens of character names of characters that already existed in fiction, and tried to like deconstruct their names and retool them and remake them into something that fit well in my head. I took my favorite characters from my other books and tried to apply their names to it because I'd never published those books, but none of them worked. Like Benel, my absolutely favorite character for my favorite manuscript that I've written to date. I ripped Benel out and I said, could Benel be a main character? And Benel doesn't sound like a main character. Ben doesn't. He's too aloof of a person, and I mean honestly, he has too aloof of a name. Like Benel just sounds like a fun, playful name, and this character is not that. This character is, in a sense, very tragic, very purposeful. He's more of a soldier than a talker. He's pained and complex, and he's grieving, eternally grieving, a mistake that he made that cost him the woman he was in love with and that he was married to, and he's had to live with that guilt. And part of his arc is the fact that he literally lives with that guilt. Because again, the book that I'm writing, for those of you who don't know, there's a villain or an enemy in that book. Not really a hard villain as hard villains go, although there is a hard villain of the book. But the enemies are shadows, and the shadows whisper to people. They whisper lies and deceits in people's ears and drive them mad. And shaders are part of a team of shadow hunters, essentially, that specialize in allowing their bodies to be taken over by these shadows and bringing them out of populated areas. And so our main character is a shader. And the shadows constantly are feeding off of his negative emotions of losing his wife, of killing his wife when he was possessed by a shadow. And so, every single day that he captures a shadow, the shadow feeds off of and looks into his torment, and then appears to him in the form of his wife. And so every single day for the last many years, like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years, this guy has essentially killed the woman he loves over and over again. And that is kind of the starting point, the default position of this character, is this mournful and sorrow and pitiable character that's kept being beaten down. So it's not something that can really be somebody as aloof as Benel is, because Benel has a very distinct personality in my head. He's a character that's already been written, it's already been made, and it is damn near impossible for me to separate that character from who he is. Now, really quickly, we're gonna go through. We're gonna erase this color. Nice. We're gonna go to the water settings. We're gonna desaturate this a little bit. I don't really think that kind of looks like eggs to me. I don't really know how I feel about that. We're gonna move that back to 0. We're gonna move back to land. We're gonna change the water texture to maybe black and white. No. It'll make sense if we can make the... Oh, excuse me, I'm burping up a storm. I want to make it like a yellowy tint. I don't know where yellow is on this, though. This way. Yeah, there's yellow. Okay, now if we desaturate the yellow, it starts to look like it does in my head. Nice and feudal background here. Or our nice and feudal map. Let me check the stain. What does the stain do on this? Gives us splotches. We can turn those off completely. Then we have high value, we have low value. We're going to keep it exactly where it was, because I really like that, actually. Then we're going to go to land. We're going to go to landmass outline color. We're going to take the darkest color of our little things here. And we are going to drop that down just slightly. I almost want to move it further in towards yellow. But also more towards white or beige. Something like that. Coastline stone, we're gonna go 3-tiered. We're gonna push the FX out. And then the coastline color is, of course, going to be the lightest color. Toned a little bit to the darker side, and we're just gonna go ahead and fade that a little bit. And make it a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Alright, this is damn close to being just completely and utterly done. I think that what needs to happen now, though, is that we need to add some stuff. And I think that the first stuff that we're going to add is actually more mountains. We're gonna click these into the open areas here. There's going to be more traffic. I might delete this little island here just because it doesn't really fit. And then we're going to go to our hills, and we are going to go ahead and just cover our ugliness here, because these are very ugly. They fade right into the ground. And the way to stop them from doing that is with little pretty hills. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to coat these with little pretty hills. This one over here. This one right here. Perfect. That'll make things look a little bit more natural. Okay, so how do we go about populating this map? Well, we're going to go here. And I know that there's an entire Asian package that came with this update, which is right here, this feudal texture. But I'm not 100% sure if these would even really work for what I want them to. Oh, look at this, I've made my own little... I forgot I made that. But speaking of that, I do think that that's what we're going to go for here. We're actually going to go all the way up. We're going to grab these colors right here. First things first, let's go ahead and make this. Red is a nice idea here, like a brownish red. So maybe like a... And I know that it looks hideous here, but I assure you, when it's actually on the map, it will look even more so, and I'll be unhappy with it and want to change it later. Let's just drop a big old dot on there. Yeah, it's too red. Keeping that value, let's just push it a little towards yellow. Desaturate it more. There we go. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna grab our... You know, maybe we'll use a different set here. Maybe we'll use these. Maybe we'll shrink this down to size 70. We'll put one here, put one here, one here, 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 one down in here, one up in here, one up in here. And then we're going to go to the Paths tool. We're going to go draw paths. We're going to change the color of our paths to this delightful little brown color here. It'll add a nice little contrast. Let me punch it down just slightly, and we're going to go with the dotted lines. We've got to be very careful with these as we are making our roads to be as logically sound as possible. We're going to leave through here. And you know what? Honestly, these are going to be very straight roads. These are drawn with intent and purpose. Just like that. Then this one would come up the other side. Go ahead and grab our anchor point here. That. We could go under the mountains wherever possible. Let's try that again. Make a little bit of a wider turn here. Yeah, there we go. When we thread the needle, we can widen it later. I've done something horribly wrong there. I've pressed like Alt Spacebar or something, and I wound up on the water tool. And as such, I've deleted my path. It's okay, we'll make it again. We want this to seem like a continuation of that path, so we're going to go ahead and try to do that the best we can. Might actually be for the best that I worked that, so that I can come back and make it better. Alright, we're going to go ahead and start the curve over here. Place a node under there. Make it come out at a nice angle, just like that. And then, of course, there would be one coming off this way. Proper spacing would put it probably around there. And it should come out at a right angle, but don't have time for right angles at daily map. That would go just there. Continuing that trend upwards would come out just about over here. And you know, I'll actually click that there to make it look like it bends naturally, even though it does not. And we'll fork this up through here. We'll attach it down to there. I'm going to take a path off of this way. Snake it down to here. Grab this over here, and of course, wind that road over here. Looking for where the nub falls off, and that looks like it's the best we can get. Going to give the illusion that there's a road going off the map that way, and then coming up over here, giving the idea that this map goes far beyond the reaches of your imagination. This is going to be the longest stretch of road, methinks. We're going to go ahead and we're going to grab this over here. Bring it down this way, curving up, bounding over, down, around here, through this canyon, and finally intersecting with the city. And then maybe there would be a way to get from point A to point D over here. It's always important to have roads connected to other roads, although that never actually happens in real life. Just like that. We've left our little island over here stranded, so let's go ahead and grab this one. Move it down over here. Going along the coast. Realistically, we would probably have cut down and saved on infrastructure costs, but we don't have to be that picky. This road would definitely exist coming out over here, interconnecting the northern and southern territories of this land, just like that. And then I have the idea to believe that there would also be a path, maybe from over here, kind of winding through these. Oh god, Wonder Draft noise scaring me again. Winding through these woods up around the coast to the top of this. And just like that, we have this absolutely stunning world map. You know, I'm gonna leave that little island. Who knows what's on there? You know, that's an idea for a different day. The question is, do we need trees for this? Are there even trees that we can add that wouldn't look completely wrong here? And I think the answer to that question is there are no trees here that would look anywhere near good. But fortunately for us, the mountains have done our jobs for us, and they've given us these delightful trees that I absolutely adore. I wish that these were actually a brush, because I love these trees. These are probably the only thing that would come close doing something like that, but if I quickly do a patch of these and then zoom out, they stick out like a sore thumb, so I don't think that's a great idea. The only other thing I could think of would actually be using these kind of spindly, tall willow trees here. Those are pine trees. My ass, that's a pine tree. What's this then? A larix tree, of course. That looks more like a pine tree to me, but shows what I know about trees. But if we shrink these down even to size 10, they're still far, far too large for what I have in mind for this map. And so I think, at the end of the day, the best thing to do is nothing. Really quickly, though, in the demo for this map tile set, one of the things that they did that I thought was super cool was they used clouds. And I have never in my life gotten clouds to look anywhere decent. Where are the clouds if not in the... Are they in the mountains? Oh, they are in the mountains. But somehow they make these clouds look absolutely, like, jaw-dropping. You know, I wish there was a hotkey for put this over something. That might actually, like, save it for me. Because, like, if you look, I'm placing things behind everything. When I want some of these to go around the tops of the trees. And I believe that the only way to do that would be to go back in and manually select them. Which, I mean, I'm not super averse to doing, but let me see. We go in here, we plus that up. Like, that could be so nice. That could be so cool. You know what I'm gonna do? First things first, we're gonna save this file as day 37, because I believe in my heart of hearts that that this is gonna get messed up real bad. So we're gonna save this as day 37. And yeah, we're gonna basically say that this is the base map for day 37. With or without the clouds, I am gonna delete all the symbols and do a symbol-free version in case you want to upload your own symbols. But let's get back to work. So which cloud type looks correctest here? I think I've already answered my own question. Certainly not those. Certainly not those. It's hard to tell which one of these are colored and which ones are not. I do think that these are the ones that go specifically with that tile set, so these are the ones that we are going to use. Let's pick a nice hunky chunk of mountains here, and that's going to be this area over here. We'll use size 20 on these, keep them small, keep them kind of whimsical and wistful, and I'm just going to give myself, like, a strip of clouds. And then I'm going to select, God, these are considered mountains too, aren't they? So this is a real pain in the butt. We're going to move these up a layer. We're going to start dropping these in. I'm going to move like, oh no, I can't do that. I can't do that. Like, cause see, this one's like floating all the way in the background of every single one of the mountains, where in reality I don't want that. I want it to only be in front of a couple of mountains, and if I wanted to do that, I'd have to select all of these and then move these to there, but then this gets messed up. So if there was a hotkey, just kind of move layers, that'd be delightful, Wonderdraft. If you're listening to this, Wonderdraft, please, please, thank you. Where's one of my front-facing clouds here? And one here, and it's like it just doesn't work correctly without Let me go +2 on these, and then see it gets everything out of whack. It's everything out of whack, and I don't want them in front of certain mountains, but I do want them in front of other mountains. And it's just like they look so good, but it's just so tedious to get these to work. I'd really have to make a map planning for it to happen. And I don't think that's this map, you know? I just don't think that's this map. Is there a single mountain that I think would look good with some clouds around it? Maybe this mountain right here is getting like that, and then get this little puff of cloud, and then move that up one, put it like right there. And yeah, I mean it's one of those things where I'd have to deliberately go in, and build a mountain range. Like what I'd have to do, I'm gonna hijack, say, out here for instance, is I'd have to do like that, and then this, and then I'd have to go and put this on like -1, keep that on 0, and then put these on +2, like this, and then like stack this with that, stack these behind there, and then when you go ahead and you add the clouds, they float around. They go in front of some mountains and behind others. Like if we redo here, like you see, they'll hide behind certain mountains just like that, and then I'd have to even go back and select a couple of these and push them back to work with that, and that could be super cool. Don't get me wrong, but that would have been something I'd have had to decide to do before this nightmare happened. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna say that we're not gonna do that, unfortunately. 4 minutes to midnight. I want to end this recording at 12:01, so I'm going to keep vamping. I'm going to try and find something else to do, for the love of God. And you know what I might actually do is go to symbols. What kind of compasses do we have here? Anything Eastern? Anything fun? Let's zoom this all the way up. That doesn't look correct at all. I mean, this one kind of fits, but what doesn't work on this is this color right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the color of the land, punch it out a little bit, and suddenly that looks way, like it fits way more. And we'll go ahead and we'll put a compass rose here. I mean, even the compass rose doesn't really fit here. Maybe an overlay? Is there any world where a grid fits on this? Is there any world where a grid fits on this? I think the answer is no. It just, oops, I got those pretty mountains back. I just think it takes so much away from the map, you know? I think it takes far too much away from the map to have a grid, so no is the answer. And so we still have 3 minutes to go here in this lovely daily map video before I can officially call it a daily map. But I know the upload will push us over time. But I wanna really say that I made this map tomorrow, so we're gonna wait until tomorrow before we end this video. I really wish that those trees were in the pack as trees. I really want to do a map with these snow-capped mountains, these shaded versions of these mountains that I've been on a kick using. So that actually might be tomorrow, where I use the brown and the green of these and try to make a colored map using only colored stamps. I want to jump back into Incarnate as well, give that a whirl again, but freshwater outline, we don't have any freshwater, so it doesn't matter. Coastline style, actually. Whoa! Look at that. That's a nightmare. That is an absolute nightmare. Coastline color, oh, there we go. Like, the hatching, it works so well until the exact moment where it doesn't. Shapes like these horizontal bumps really screw with everything. And I mean, actually, uniform outline's probably a better system here. Landmass outline color, drop the alpha a little bit, maybe up a little bit more. Coastline, turn this a bit towards the yellow, but keep it a little bit brown. Drop the opacity down just a hair. Do that. The last thing we'll do is we'll go to the selection tool, which is under symbols, selection. We're going to filter out and only select our symbols here, and we're going to go ahead and delete all the cities. We're going to go into our paths tool here. We're going to go to our selection tool. We are going to start at the top corner, and we are going to select all of our paths and delete them as well. And we're going to go ahead and export this as day 37, no symbol. So if you guys would like to put your own cities down, you will certainly have the ability to do so. That being said, it is now midnight here on the east coast of the United States, which means that this is technically tomorrow's map, which means that we are all clear to end this recording. If you like this map and you want to download it to use in your own Dungeons & Dragons game or tabletop RPG setting, or really anything that's not monetized, there will be a link in the description down below to my Imgur page where you will find this map, as well as a link to an album, which is the previous month's maps. It's the month of August. It has 50 absolutely free maps in there that you can use, including world maps, battle maps, etc. If you're new to the channel and this is the first daily map you've ever seen, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more daily maps, I've got 36 others on the channel already. And there are going to be many more coming every single day off into the future. That being said, I must now take my leave and get back to pining over the names of a character that does not exist. And thus I will leave you hanging, but I will say thank you so much for watching and have an amazing day, or evening, middle of the night. Anyways,